Perfect. So, welcome everyone to week 4 of the Fundamentals of Python bootcamp. So, this week is going to be more of wrapping things up with the technical side and getting into the project side of things. So, today we're going to be covering a little more advanced concepts, and we're going to be doing a complete review of everything that we have. So before I go on, can everyone hear me clearly? Just put a thumbs up. Everything's good. Okay. So today's table of contents, we're first going to cover what functions are in Python. We're going to do we're also going to cover how to take user input and display output, which some of it you guys already know. And then we will also be doing a full review of weeks 2 and 3, which were the last 2 weeks where we covered the basics of Python and the kind of syntax of everything, such as loops and conditionals. Then we will be focusing on building projects, what that is going to look like for the next 2 weeks from now on. And then we're going to have a conclusion and book it at the end. But a review of our timeline so far. So week 1 was an introductory meeting, nothing technical there. We just set up Google Colab and we just understood what programming really was. Weeks 2 and 3, as I said before, we covered the basics of programming, such as variables, data types, if loops, for loops, and general control flow, right? And week 4, which is now, again, as I said, we're going to be covering functions and input, and we'll do a final review to prepare you guys to build your own independent projects. So that's what we have right now. And does anyone have any questions so far? Okay, perfect. So then we will get started with the first topic, which is functions. So essentially, a function works in 3 basic steps, right? As you can see in this diagram right here, right? The first thing, the 3 main parts of a function are input, a process, and an output, right? So now let's talk about each of these, right? What is an input? Input is the data that you give to a computer. So if I was talking to my friend and I wanted him to tell me what the answer to 1 + 1 was, what the answer to, say, 2 numbers, the addition of 2 numbers was. So then I would have to give my friend the input, right? 2 numbers as input, like 2 numbers which he has to add up to tell me an answer, right? So that's the data that you're giving a computer, or the input that you're giving to a computer for a process to be done. That is what it's going to work with, right? And then in terms of process, a process is right here, a series of actions done on the input that you give to the computer in order to change the input or combine it with something else to produce a different result, right? So going back to that example of the friend, right? I give my friend 2 numbers, right? Say 2 + 3, 2 and 3, right? The process there is the addition that I'm telling him to add the numbers, right? If 2 and 3 are the input, adding those 2 numbers is the process, right? And in Python, the process is essentially just code, which is inside a function, right? It's what you're doing on the input, again, to receive a result. And speaking about the result, that is the output, right? The altered version of the input is the output, right? It's the result of a process that is done on an input, right? So now, again, with the example, if we have input, process, and output, if we're going through all of these 3 steps, the input in the example that I gave would be the two numbers, right? 2 and 3, right? The process would be adding up those two numbers, 2 plus 3, right? The output would just be the result of that process, which everyone knows 2 plus 3 is 5, right? Does that make sense? That's essentially the basic structure of a function, of how it works. And we can see this right here with this graphic right here. It's called a function machine, right? This box right here. And that represents the process, right? So say you're giving the computer some input. This can be anything, by the way. Input can be a number, a phrase, a sentence, anything that a process can be done on, right? So now you have this input X that is fed into this process, which we're saying function machine here, into this box. Something happens in this box, a process that you code technically in Python happens in this box, which leads to an output, to a different result than the input, right? That's the basic structure and how a function works. I see some questions. Iraj, do you have a question?
Can you tell everyone to stop spamming the reactions?
I can't hear you for some reason.
Can you tell everyone to stop spamming the reactions?
Can everyone hear him? Is it just me? Or
He's saying, can you tell people to stop spamming reactions, which people have stopped until
okay,
now.
I think it's a problem on my side, which I will okay, 1 second. Sorry, I think I'm having trouble with my speaker. Okay. Right. Okay, it works now. Yeah. So, Raj, could you say your question again?
Can you tell people to stop spamming the chat and like the reactions?
Oh, right. Okay. So please use the reactions only when I ask you a question, right? It's hard to see the screen. So don't spam it or, make it too distracting. But yeah. Okay. That's fine. Anyone have any technical questions? Something about functions and what they are? Yeah, Deepak?
So is there input like when you add two numbers like 12 and 30, the input is like the data you give, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And what if you subtract it? Is it the same?
Right. So it doesn't matter what the input is not reliant on the process. Now, what that means is the process can be anything, right? You can subtract the two numbers, multiply the two numbers, you can do anything. The process is something that you tell the computer that it has to do, right? Yeah, so if that answers your question, the process can be anything. It doesn't only have to be addition.
So like the input is like 2 and 3, and the process and you have to multiply 2 and 3, and the output is like 6.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly how it works. Your input is 2 and 3. your process is multiplying those two numbers, and your output is just going to be the result of the process, right? Which is 6, exactly. Right. Okay, Samanyu?
I forgot my question.
Okay, that's okay. You can raise your hand again if you remember it. Shale, question?
Oh, that's just me. I'm logged into my mom's account.
Oh, okay, sure.
So I just joined. What are the? Can you explain the thing?
Oh, this was yeah, so we're just covering functions, what a function is.
Okay.
Yeah, just you can read the slides. They should help you get caught up. Rayansh, question? You're on mute, Rayansh.
So if you give it algebra, will it like still solve it?
Yes, yeah, it will. For example, let's take algebra, right? So if your function was, say, you're given some input, right? You're given, let's say 4, right? And you wanted to do algebra on it. So what you would do is you do multiplication, division, and addition, right? Multiple steps, right? Or you want to use that and solve for another variable, then you can define that in your process. You can write code to kind of perform that process on the input. The process can be anything. It can be algebra. It can be different math. It can even be English, right? It's something that you define, right, to the computer to do on the input. Does that answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Samanyu, you have another question? Oh, yeah.
Can you show us how to do like the additions and multiplications and divisions in the coding Google Collaboratory?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I am getting to that. Once I explain a little more, I'll explain the code side of things. Yeah. But for now, that is the basic idea of a function. So why would we use functions, right? You might ask. Well, functions make your code more readable because each function, well, has a function, right? It's used for something. So it divides your code up into different processes that just make it easier to see and find out where the errors are, right? For example, if you find an error, if your code is crashing, then you can isolate each function and see which one is causing the problem instead of running the whole program again, which is sometimes thousands of lines of code long. You can get the error much easier, right? And then another rule that we have in programming is called DRY, which is don't repeat yourself, right? And functions, as you code more by yourself, you'll learn that functions are very useful to avoid repetition in your code, right? Yeah, Rayansh?
So why do you need to specifically use functions? Why can't you just say print 3 plus 5 and I'll just put 8? Why do you specifically need to put the input 3 plus 5 and then do the function and then take the output?
Right. So now 3 plus 5 is it's like very, very simple, right? But as you do more programming in the future, things will get much more complicated, much more complex, right? It's not just a matter of adding two numbers. You might need to process different files. You might need to take input from different areas, right? It gets much more complex, and functions are used to simplify that complexity, make it easier to organize your code, right?
Got it.
Mm-hmm. Advait, question?
Yeah, how do you define a function?
Yeah, we'll get into that. Python part of it. Yeah. Okay. Aryan question. Oh, I see your question actually. How does the computer know how to complete processes like multiplication? Right. So the computer knows how to do this because the way the programming language was built, right? So programming languages like Python have a lot of inbuilt like processes inside them that automatically do simple tasks, right? So addition, subtraction, basic mathematics are all like built into the programming language. Like the people who built the programming language built it to include those as kind of basic stuff that people can use to build things without them having to make those, addition or subtraction functions themselves, right? So they've kind of just made them for us, kind of. They simplified our job. Does that make sense? Then how do you tell the computer to complete a certain process? What code do you use? Right. So we'll get into the code side of it. But yeah, I'll explain how you do that in Python. Sure. Deepak, question?
What if there are no functions in the world?
If there are no functions in the world, things will get very complicated and it will just make things much harder for us to do on a daily basis. It might not seem like that right now, but in the future, as you do more programming and get into software, you'll understand why they're valued. That's why this is an advanced topic, kind of. It doesn't come until later on. Okay, so let's get into the coding side right here. Okay, so can everyone see my screen right here? Right here, this section right here. It says functions, right? So the way you always start a function is with the keyword def, D-E-F, right? So you use DEF to tell Python, to tell the interpreter that, okay, I'm starting to write my own function here, right? So you say def and then the name of your function. The name of your function is often something that you wanted to do, right? If my function was add two numbers, then if my function was adding two numbers, like the process, then my function name would be add numbers, as you can see right here, right? So making your function names like related to your processes is the general standard here, right? So say I have this very simple function right here, def greet, right? What this, as you can see by the name of it, greet, it greets a person, right, by their name. Now, what this does is right here, this is called an argument, right? What an argument is it's the input that you pass into the computer, right? So here, the argument or the input will be in parentheses next to your function name, right? So def greet name, right? So what this is saying is I'm going to give this function a name as the input, and what the function will do is it will write a sentence or a phrase greeting the person, right? As you can see, you add a colon here, and then you indent right here, right? There's a space here. There's like that 4 spaces here. And then you write your code underneath here, right? And whenever you're using functions, treat this input as a variable, right? Because input is dependent on what the user wants, right? So here, name doesn't only need to be Arush or Samanyu or Deepak, right? It can be something else. right? So treat name as a variable rather than a hard-coded thing, right? So now let's get into the function, right? So now inside we have print hello name, right? I'm going to ignore this for now. Print hello plus your name, right? Name, right? That is how you define a function, essentially, right? Yeah, okay. Advit, do you have a question? Okay, Ahana, question?
When you run the code, where do you see the out?
Right. So yeah, so I will run the code. But yeah, that's how you define a function. And then there's another step, right? There's calling the function. This is the part that's actually going to give you the output, right? How you call a function is basically telling the program, hey, Python, I want you to run this process on this input that I give you and give me the output, right? So now let's ignore this second function for a little bit and let's see what happens, right? Sorry. Let's see what happens. Okay, so now our output here, as you can see, is hello Alice and hello Bob, right? Now, if you notice here, when we're calling the function, we are giving it the output. We're giving it the input. We're giving it the name, right? Alice is the input. Bob is the input, right? So if we go through how Python, processes this code, so first it will come from the top, right? Interpreting language, always from the top, right? Line by line. It'll look at this function, right? Okay, so this is the greet function. It takes in the name as an input, right? And inside the function, the user, the process is to print hello and then the name next to it, right? That's the process. Okay, great, right? We've defined the function and the process, but we haven't told Python to execute it yet, to run the process yet. That's where we call the function. We're saying greet, right? Greet is the name. You always call the function by its name and then input. This is the general format for how you call a function, right? So you're doing the same thing here, right? You're saying greet, and then you're giving it the name, which is, again, the input that you have to give here, right? Greet Alice, right? And then when you're given that, Python thinks, okay, so the user is giving me the input of Alice, right? Which I will then input into this process right here. And then that process will give me the output of hello, Alice. And the same thing happens for Bob, right? Bob goes in, hello, Bob comes out, right? That's essentially what a function does, right? Samanu, question?
Can you try to do this in a Google Collaboratory?
This is Google Collaboratory. And yeah, you guys should try it as well on your side.
Okay.
Deepak, question?
Do we have to write what you wrote?
No, you don't, but it would be helpful if you were to follow along with what I'm writing here, right? As long as you understand this, that's what matters. And then you can practice by yourself. But yeah, that's how a function works. And here, if you see, this process inside can be different, right? It doesn't only need to be print hello name, right? I can say print hello person, right? And then I can have another print statement underneath there. I can say, you are and then I can say another print statement, right? I can write whatever I want in this as long as I'm giving it the input, right? That's what matters. The process under a function, it can be changed, right? That's essentially what you need to know. Deepak, question?
No.
Okay. Shale, question?
Yeah, I don't understand how the exclamation mark comes into place.
Sorry, what did you say?
Like in the old code, where it was like print f hello name exclamation mark. How does that make the code say hello Alice exclamation mark?
Okay, so essentially what I did there was I'm doing the same thing as I did here, but I'm using something that's called a formatted string, which you don't need to know because you can just use this format right here. You can type your string and then you can do plus name like this, right? But what you do with the formatted string is you do print here, you type in F, and then you just do single quotes, and then you type in whatever you want. Hello, I know you are, and then you use curly brackets, curly braces, and then you type your variable name. Now, when you run this, you see that it's formatting it in this way, where you're given the string, and inside the string, you're giving it a variable. So it's the same thing as connecting these two like this. It's just a different format, right? It's just an alternate.
Oh,
Okay, yeah. But yeah, that's essentially what a function is. And you can do the same thing with addition as well, right? Say I have this, right? My program wants to add two numbers, right? For now, let's avoid this. Yeah, so say my program wants to add two numbers, right? I have def add numbers, and I give it two input slots, A and B, A comma B, right? You can give it as many input slots as you want, right? E, right? How many of you want, right? And then your process inside is adding those two numbers, right? And then calling the function, right? That's always necessary. If you want an output, you need to call the function, right? And there's a special way you can do this. Instead of printing it, you can store the output of that function into a variable by just assigning a placeholder value equals calling the function, right, with your two arguments. And then you can say print your the sum is plus some result, right? And now you see how we came with an error here? Does anyone know why we come up with an error here? Why do you think there's an error here?
Because add numbers isn't a function.
It is a function. We defined it as a function, def add numbers. So it is a function, right? Shay?
Because add numbers needs 5 like inputs.
Exactly. That's right. Add numbers needs 5 inputs, and we only gave it 2, right? Whether or not we're using the all of the inputs, when a function asks, when you defined a function to take in 5 inputs, it needs 5 inputs, right? No matter what. So when we're only giving it two inputs, the function's going to be like, oh, I don't know what to do because I'm not getting all the inputs I need to do this process, because we defined the function as a process to be applied on 5 inputs, right? Now, if you see 4, 2, 5. Say we gave it these, right? There's 5 numbers here, and then we've said 5 inputs, right? Now, wait 1 sec. I'll just use formatted string here. Sometimes it's easier to use formatted string, but it's just personal choice. So, 1 second. Right. I think I'm missing. Right. Okay. So when you're dealing with integers, right, you need something called a return statement, right? What a return statement does is it returns, it stores the value, it stores the output of the function in like a temporary area. So whenever you're dealing with integers, right, you will need to say return a plus b to store that value as a part of that function, right? You can have anything else in the function. That is completely fine, right? You can say print a plus b, print a plus b plus d plus e, or minus c, something like that. But you always need a return statement for the function, right, in order to have a final value, right, to assign a value to that function. Samanyu, question?
I don't really understand.
Which part?
Like the almost like everything. I don't get it.
Oh, okay. So I'll explain it once again then. But before that, Iraj, question?
Where's there double pluses when A plus plus B?
Oh, sorry. That was just a typo. Yeah, that was just a typo. Okay, thank you. But yeah, okay. So let's clear this up once again, right? Let's forget all of this. Let's start a new function that is to subtract two numbers, right? My goal for this function is to subtract two numbers, right? So what do you guys think the name of this function should be? I'll let you guys decide. You can type it in the chat. If we're subtracting two numbers, what should the name be? Okay, we have subtract numbers. Okay. Yeah, subtract numbers works perfectly fine. Subtract numbers, right? So we have def subtract numbers. And now, since we have two numbers, we have to give it two outputs because we're subtracting two numbers, A, comma, B. These are your inputs that you're providing, right? Now, inside, if we want to subtract two numbers, then we need to do A minus B, right? That's the process that you're doing here. And let's say some number x. X is equal to A minus B, right? Now, when we're doing, when we want to assign a output, when we want the output of our function, especially with integers and math, we need to do return x, right? Because x is A minus B, which has our output stored in x. So we will return x as a part of the function, right? Now we will call the function, right? And we will give it two numbers, right? We will give it 5, 4. Shale, question?
Yeah, so can I share my screen? My code doesn't work. When I told it to add 5, 3, 4, 2, and 5, it gave me 8.
Okay. 1 second. You can. let me just finish this real quick. I'll allow you to share your screen. 1 second. Okay, so now we're calling the function here, right? Now let's see what happens. Okay, yeah. So now you see that your function, you gave it 2 inputs, 5, 4, and it gave you 1 because 5 minus 4 is 1, right? That's what the function was made to do, right? Subtract 2 numbers, and it does that perfectly, right? And you can change this to be 7 and 9, right? -2, right? Say you can do 100,000 minus that, and you get this number, right? The input can be anything as long as your process is defined, right? You made the process. But yeah, that's basically it for functions. Shale, now you can share your screen. I will stop sharing. And you can, you have a question, Samanyu?
No, I just said it now. I get it.
Okay, perfect. Shale, do you want to share your screen?
Oh yeah, can I do it later? It's not working.
Okay, sure. You can always just paste your code into the chat and I can help you figure out what's wrong as well.
Okay.
But we will get into another part, which is input and output. Okay. Now, this is basic things, right? You guys already know that print is to take print what you want here, right? But another part of that is taking input, right? You want to take input from the user. One way you do that is you will define a variable, right? You will say name equals keyword, just like print, input, enter your name, right? And then age equals input, enter your age, right? Things like that. So the general structure for taking input is asking the user what input he has to give, or he or she has to give, and then storing the input into a variable, right? So variable equals input what you are asking for, right? Now let's run this code, right? Say my name is Arush, right? My age is 16. My school is American High School. Now you see how instead of doing this in code, I did it using input, right? What I did is I gave the computer input using these, right? Using these input blocks, and I outputted using that input, just like this, right? So the input block is actually a function, right? It's a built-in function specifically. So it's something that the builders of Python already created for us. You're just giving input to the input to store into a variable. It gets a little complicated, but just understand that this is the format for taking input, right? For asking the user what he or she wants or what they want, right? Any questions for input?
Yeah. When it says advanced, you can also use conditionals. What does that mean?
Right. So what I mean by advanced is, say I have, so say the user is not giving, so realize how age is a numerical value, right? Age is a number, right? It's not a letter, right? So if I want to say, if I want to tell the user to give a number instead of a letter for age, so say, for example, if age, oh wait, this is a little, So if I said, let's use another example, right? If I wanted to say a specific thing, if the person was below 18 and above 18, I would use conditionals here, right? So if age less than 18, just like how you do with a variable, less than or equal to 18, you would say print, you would go back here. Let's use this. Hi, you are 8 years old and you are very young. You also you go to school, right? That's if they're less than 18, right? Say they're above 18 now. If age greater than or equal to 18, print hi plus name plus you are, again, age plus years old, and you are pretty old. We'll just say that. Also, you go to the university / college plus school, right? Because above 18, you're going to go to college or university, right? Now, if we enter, my name is Arush, my age is 16, my school is American High School, right? Sorry, yeah, okay. I have to, okay. American High School, right? So I would do concatenate. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I have to use formatted string here, but okay. Yeah, Akshar's question.
Can you send this code in the Google Classroom?
Yes, I will send this code in the Google Classroom. So there's this problem where if you want to concatenate, like if you want to like add these together, then you will need to do a formatted string for including integers, but I'm trying to bypass that right now. We'll just do a different example if it doesn't work. Okay. Okay, so what else? Okay. Let's see if this works. Okay, perfect. All right, this works. So we have this, right? You can ignore this for now. I'll keep this in because it's something called typecasting, where you like impose a certain like data type onto a variable. So here, when you're taking input, you always take input in the form of a string, right? So even if you enter a number, it'll be counted as a string, as a letter, right? So it's kind of like you're saying the word as it to the computer rather than the number itself, right? So then you have to make it an integer when you're taking input, right? You can also do int input here. That also works, but I wouldn't worry about that too much right now. If you guys are getting errors in your programs, then that will be a point of concern, but that we'll deal with that later. That's a little more advanced. But yeah, so now my name is Arush. I am 16. I go to American High School. And now you can see, because my age is less than 18, it says you are 16 years old and you are very young, right? And also you go to American high school. But if I said my age was 99, then I said university. Then, oh my gosh. Okay, yeah, okay. Okay. So if I said my age was 99, my school was, say, some university, and then here you can say, hi, Arush. It says, hi, Arush, you are age 99 years old and you are pretty old, right? Because you're using a conditional which changes it to basically adapts to whatever the output is by testing what the variable value is, mostly with integers. That's the advanced portion of this. I wouldn't worry about it too much, but it's definitely useful if you can do it. Shale, a question?
Yeah. So when it says enter your name and it says Arush and it says all those things, right? Is there a way to make them disappear and then say the final sentence?
What do you mean?
Like it says enter your name Arush, enter your age 99, enter your school name university. Can you make that disappear and then it says hi Arush, you are 99 years and you're pretty
Oh yeah, that works. You don't need to do these. You don't need to do these. You can just leave these as spaces or nothing. That works as well, right? Just do this, and then you can see you just have a box there, right? And then American, and that still works, right? It still works. That's just something that you can use to clarify to the user what you're asking of them.
No, I'm saying like the whole thing disappears completely and there's only that sentence.
Only that sentence?
Yeah.
So like if I just didn't have anything here?
Yeah.
Like that?
No. Like it shouldn't show Arush 16 American.
Oh, here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's not possible in Google Colab, right? But in VS Code maybe, or in other softwares, it might be possible. But for Google Colab, it's not. You can always just do this, right? Before you're printing something, you can just do print/n, right? And what this does is it just prints a new line. 16 American, right? So you see, you get that space here. You can always just do that to keep your code more organized, but no, there isn't a way you can, get rid of this because it's the way Google Colab works.
Okay.
Aryan, question?
Could you look over the code I sent in the chat and see what I did wrong?
Okay, let's see. I'll try your code, honestly. Okay, so first, you have a lot of things here. I think if you want to multiply, okay. Okay, so what you're getting wrong here is you technically you can't really add multiple return statements to a one singular function, right? Well, it just makes it much more confusing, but because you'll only, at the end of the code, only one return statement is executed, basically, right? You can't really have things like this, right? So to simplify your thing, right? I think you can just get rid of these, right? Like this whole thing here, right? And if I think what you're trying to do is okay. So, okay, could you tell me what you're trying to do here?
I sent the equation, what I'm trying to do in the chat.
How would I make the computer solve 13 minus 2 minus 1 times 14 plus 15 plus 16? Okay, so let's clear this up, right? Because class ends at 1:30. We're gonna be doing a quick review, and then we're gonna be doing Book It, and that's it. But 1:30. Okay, so we need 3 functions for this, right? This is a great example, guys. Let's look at this one. So first, I want to subtract 3 numbers. Def subtract 3. Okay, let's say subtract 3 nums, something like this, right? So you want to subtract 3 numbers, A, B, C. Okay, you need a colon next to your function to tell Python that the process is under here, right? So then you will say return A minus B minus C, right? That's your function. That's your first function, right? Or let's simplify it even more, right? Subtracted result equals A minus B minus C, right? And we'll just say return subtracted result, right? Perfect. Now we will create another function that is def add 3 nums, right? And we'll give it def, right? So added result equals d plus e plus f, and we'll say return added result. Okay. So far we have 2 functions, right? We're subtracting 3 numbers and we're adding 3 numbers. Now, let's call these 2 functions, right? So let's store the value. So subtracted equals call the function, subtract 3 nums with your 3 values, which are 13, 2, and 1. And then we'll say added equals add 3 nums, 14, 15, 16, correct? Great, perfect. Now, what we will do is we will just do, you don't even need a function for this, right? You can just say multiplied equals subtracted times added, and you can just say print multiplied. And your answer is 450, right? Sometimes using a function makes it more complicated than not using it. So it's just down to judgment, right? And now if we actually calculate this, so let's 13 minus 2 minus 1, right? Minus 1, you'll get 10 multiplied by 14 plus 15 plus 16, and your answer is 450, right? And that's exactly what we got. That's how you do it. You'd use 2 functions here. And it just comes down to practice, right? I'll paste the code here so you can start on yourself. But I will publish this code as well on Google Classroom so you can refer to this. But yeah, any other questions for functions? Anything? Okay, perfect. So yeah, that is all that I have for functions, but there's still more left. We'll do a quick review of week 2 and week 3, and then we'll talk about the project. So again, variables, right? Variables are labeled boxes that hold data, right? Different values. This value can be a number, a decimal, right? It can be a string, which is basically a word, right? It can be anything that you want it to be, just like you see in the example right here, right? You will always use the equal to sign to assign a value to a placeholder name, right? And there's 4 main data types. There's strings, integers, floats, and lists, which I'm pretty sure all of you should know by now. Yeah, strings are just text, integers are numbers, floats are decimals, lists are just, well, lists. And now, conditionals, right? So conditionals are reliant on a Boolean value, right? Which is a true or false state, right? If the condition is true, then the code below will run, right? If it's not, then it will check the next elif block, right? We basically, if the first condition is not true, it'll check the second condition. And if all the conditions are not true, or they're false, then it will just run the else block, right? Some common operators, which are basically comparing and used with conditionals, are equal to, not equal to, greater than, or less than, right? And we'll see this in Google Colab as well. But just understand that you will pass in a test variable, say test value. The condition will check if based on a test value, if the condition is true. The program will check if the condition is true or false. If it's false, it'll go to the elif and then the else code. If the condition is true, it will run the conditional code and then go to the next line, right? That's essentially what you do. And let's view this from a coding standpoint, right? Again, we have variables here, which are defined as such. Integer variables, like player lives, something that is quantitative, right? Something that can be expressed with a number, right? A whole number specifically. And then we have string variables, which are just words or sentences, such as my name, my school, my favorite quote, stuff like that, right? Then we have float variable declaration, which is where you're using floats, which are decimals, right? That's separate from integer, right? So you will declare them just like this, just like integers, but you will add decimal points. And then lists, you will use square brackets like this to define them, right? That's that. And then for conditionals, you have your variable here. And by using these operators, which are either true or false, you will test it to see if it's true, then run this code. If it's not, then don't run this code, right? Things like that. Deepak, question?
Can you also put these codes on Google Colab?
Yeah. Yeah. I will post this final review on Google Classroom, so all of you can refer to it as well. Yeah. But yeah, that's that. And then that's week 2. That's what we learned week 2. And then week 3, we learned about loops, right? Loops are essentially just a tool that is used to repeat a block of code that you want repeated, right? Specifically, for loops are tools that repeat a block of code a fixed amount of times, while loops are a type of loop that repeat a block of code until a condition is met, right? So let's look at the right here. Let's look at the images right here. For a for loop, right? For each level in this list, it will check if this number is greater than this number, the threshold, and it will print either the level is high or the level is low, right? Yeah, Deepak, question?
No.
Okay, Shayla, question?
Yeah, it says you have to have a condition assigned or your computer will explode. If you do, it will actually explode.
So what I meant by that is, okay. So what I meant by that was, say I have this right here. So say I have x equal to 1, right? While x is less than, while x is less than 10, print, print, right? So while this value x is less than 10, right? While this conditional x is less than 10 is true, then you will keep on printing this. So if we run the code, look at that. It just keeps going on and on and on and on and on and on and on, right? That's what I meant by crashing your computer, because this conditional is never false, which means the code will always run, right? It will run forever, right? So that's what I meant by crashing your computer. And you generally want to avoid that, because that's what you call an infinite loop, right? It just keeps repeating. So you generally want this condition to be false eventually at a point of time, right?
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Wait, so how would you make it false at a point?
You will use something called incrementing. So after after one iteration is done, iteration is just the number of times it like repeated so far. So after the first time it repeated, you will increase the value of x by 1. The second time, you'll increase the value of x by 2, right? And so on until x eventually reaches 10, right? When x reaches 10, well, the condition is false because 10 is not greater than 10, right? So the while loop will exit out and it will terminate, right? And that's how you prevent it.
Oh, what if you... Oh, wait, never mind.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was about to ask, what if you said +1 every time? But that would just make it 11, right?
Yeah, that's essentially what you're doing here. You're incrementing, but it's just a cleaner way to do it. Yeah. Okay. So then we have the code implementation, which is right here, right? So say I have a list, right? I will say for I in names. So for each value, right? In the list names, I will print each name, right?
We can't hear you. I think I can't hear you.
Is that for everyone or?
No,
Just him.
I can hear him.
Just him.
Oh, my speaker was off.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, that's essentially what you're doing, right? You're repeating over this loop until all the values in this list are printed, right? So you can see Arush, Arya, Christian, Mr. Reese, all of them are printed eventually, right? There's another way you can do this, which is called accessing lists and printing with range, which is a little more complex. And we'll get into that when we're talking about accessing lists, right? But yeah, you can pair these with conditionals and that works as well. It's just a little more complex, which you can use to for different purposes. And then while loops, the code is right here. This is, you say while, you give your condition, and you run your program. And be sure to have it so that your while loop, the conditional inside your while loop, is eventually going to be false. So your code, terminates eventually. So yeah, that is loops. Now, we have lists. Now, lists are a very important data type because they're used practically everywhere, right? And they have two main components, which is the index and the element. The index is the position of where a certain number or an element or value is placed in a list, right? So if I have a list of numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Index 0 would be the first value, right? Index 1 would be the second value. Index 2 would be the third value, right? And so on, right? So that's essentially what a list, parts of a list are. And elements or list are accessed using their indices, right? Indices is just a plural form of index, and let's see how that is in code form, right? So right here we have a list which is groceries, right? So there are multiple ways you can access lists, but the main specific ways are through these indexes, right? So you say bananas equals groceries 0, right? What that essentially means is at position 0, we are assigning bananas, right? We are assigning bananas, the variable bananas, to the position 0, right, in the list. And instead of assigning, if I just said print groceries 0, right? Print groceries 0. Notice how I get bananas here. Why? Because at the index 0, the value stored in the list is bananas, right? If I said 1, well, I would get apple juice. If I said 2, I would get oranges, right? Things like that. That's how you access elements in a list, okay? And then if you wanted to access multiple values in a list, then you would use something called slicing. This is more advanced. You don't need to know this, but essentially what this does is it prints all the values from one index to another. So from position 0 all the way to the end of the list is what you're saying, right? That's just what slicing is. And yeah, that is a quick review. Hopefully everyone understood everything. If you have more questions, you can message on Google Classroom. All these materials will be posted on Google Classroom as well, the Google Colab included. But that's all you need on the technical side. Now let's discuss about the final project. So since we are done basically with the fundamentals of Python, you guys will be applying these skills to a project of your own, of your choice, right? So previously we discussed, right, you will be brainstorming, you will be building, and you'll be refining and presenting this project to this bootcamp, right? So currently we are in the last steps of the brainstorm phase. So you guys should have a solid idea of what your project will be by the next few days, right? And okay, let's see. We have some questions here. When are we starting the final project? Final project, yeah, you'll be working on it this week and next week. So you have 2 weeks until the final project showcase, and you'll be working on these projects, and we'll be, mentoring you and like telling you, helping you out, right? Yes, you will be allowed to work in groups, and that is actually what I'm getting to right here. So assign. Okay. So over the next few days, right, you will be finalizing your project, and you will be filling out this right here, right? This project ideas list, right? So everyone, you can work in groups of 3, right? But that's 3 max, right? You'll be basically entering your name right here, your project idea, right? A general description of the project that you're doing, and any other comments, right? The project is about sustainability, something that is related to solving a problem or a, something that the environment's facing, right? Okay. You can do it by yourself as well. Yeah. Yeah, Advait, question?
You just answered my question, so.
Okay, perfect. Moksh, question?
For the final project, what are we trying to make?
So for the final project, you can do multiple stuff, right? You can make a tracker app, you can make a survey, something that you can publish, and or you can make a estimator using math, right? There's many projects you can do. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I make a game?
Sure, you can make a game too. You can make a text-based game if you have, if you feel confident. Yeah, you can do that as well.
I have
Do you
another
have-
question.
Do you have to do like write about like the environment, or can you like do it like something like related to the environment, but like not exactly about the environment?
Well, preferably it has to be related to like environment and sustainability, right? And something, that targets a problem, right? But if it's like a little deviating, that's okay as well.
So like if I were to build like a input based like bot that asks about like where your area is and then writes the like environmental changes or climate change in the area, would that be an appropriate project?
Yeah, that would definitely be a good project. Yeah. That's something you can do with Python as well. Great idea. Yeah. Deepa, question?
So, what are general description? What's the general description?
So a general description is basically like what you're thinking of what your project is going to be, right? Like how you're going to build your project and what your project is about. That's it.
No.
Moksh, another question?
Yeah, can I use like a different website?
What do you mean website?
Like instead of using Collaboratory for the code, can I use like something called CodeHS?
Yeah, sure. If you're comfortable with a different IDE, yeah, you can use a different software.
Thank you.
Perfect. Hana, question?
What does the R in baby R stand for?
Oh, refining your project and your code. Deepak, another question?
Do we have to do it on Google Colab, or can we do it like on Snap and Scratch and stuff?
For this one, it's going to be limited to Python.
Oh.
So yeah, and it's not as hard as you think it is. Okay, yeah, I'll fix that later. But yeah, so please finish this form. Please fill out this Google Sheets by Wednesday, I think. And if you don't have a project idea by Wednesday, you can reach out to us and we'll help you with the project idea, coming up with them as well. Please, everyone has edit access, so don't spam this. Yeah, don't. Seriously. Then Aryan, question?
If we're doing a group project, is it okay if only one of us like fill it in?
Yes, one of you can fill it in, but just make sure all your names are on the side right here. Okay, perfect. Deepak, another question?
No.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so that is it. So a final conclusion, and I think Arya sent a feedback form a couple minutes earlier. Here it is again. I think he pinned it as well. And just fill out that feedback form and just give us a review, just tell us what we can improve on real quick. And then here's the conclusion. So essentially today we covered what functions are. We covered how to take user input and display output, right? We also covered a quick review of lists, data types, variables, loops, conditionals, all of which you can review on the meeting review materials, which will be posted on Google Classroom. And your goal for this week is to finalize your project idea and enter it on the Google Sheets, right? And plan your project and maybe even start working on it because you have 2 weeks, right? And spend some time on it, think about what you want to do, things like that. And then review all the concepts that have been taught and get really comfortable with Python, like understanding what it is and how you're going to use it in your projects as well. That's your main goals and for next week. right? Next week, we're going to be focusing on more of one-on-one or group-by-group tutoring. We're going to be looking at your projects, what you can improve, how you can get started, right? All the things like that. And yeah, that's the plan for the next 2 weeks. If you don't have a project idea by Wednesday, and we will reach out to you, and you can reach out to us as well, either through email or Google Chat from here on out, right?
Can you post your email in the Google Classroom?
Sure. You can just leave a. Okay. Yeah. Sure. I will. Yeah. Parth, I think. Question.
So you said that we can use different IDEs limited to Python. So could we like use Python and like upload it onto like hardware stuff like Arduinos?
Sure. That might be a little more complex because for microcontrollers, you'll be using something called MicroPython. But yes, you can do that if you know how to use Python with Arduinos and microcontrollers.
Okay, thanks.
Just make sure it's Python though.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Ahana, question?
Is there a prize for this?
Yes. The final project showcase will have a prize. Still to be decided, but yes, there is a prize.
So like, is it like top 3?
Top 5.
Okay.
Yeah. Deepak, final question.
So are we doing book it now? Because it's
Yes.
already like 1:30.
Yes, we are going to do a 5-minute book it.
Okay.
So yeah, that's it, everyone. Once you've filled out the feedback/attendance form, you can stay up for the book it. It's just 5 minutes, and it's also going to be a quick summary of everything that we've covered. So we will get started with that, but that's all I have for the technical side. Mithil, you can share your screen for the book it, and you guys can ask him what mode you guys want to play.